Cliff, could you briefly describe yourself? Briefly describe yourself.
Well, I was born to save Aurora in 1946, and then I went to school at West Aurora High School, graduated from there, and then a month later I enlisted in the U.S. Air Force. And at the time that I did that, the Marine recruiters came walking into the Air Force office and said they wanted to tear up the paperwork, they wanted me to be in the Marines. I said, no, you don't touch that, I've already signed it. And so I went in the Air Force, and it was 1965. I was 19.
So why did you want to join the military?
Well, there's several reasons. One is there was a draft, gentlemen, and with the draft, if you're called in there Chicago in a draft, could put you in the Army, they could put you in the Marines, they could put you wherever they want to put you. If you enlisted, you got to choose where you want to be. And that's why I enlisted in the Air Force.
What did you do in the military, and where did you deploy?
Okay. Well, as I said, I enlisted in Aurora, and my next duty station was down there, basic training in Lackland Air Force Base, San Antonio, Texas, which is the main training area for the United States Air Force. And I was there for several weeks, and what they did was they assigned you to a flight. What do I mean by that? It's like a platoon, or a little bit bigger than a platoon, that the Army would have, or that the Marines would be doing. And so you were a group of young men, in this particular one, from all over the United States. And what they did is they break you down. In other words, we were all 19 or in that area, so we were all tough and ready to go. We thought we couldn't. We were expendable if we needed to be, but we didn't have any fears. So they had to break us down and rebuild us into the image of an airman in that particular case. And so you were in a barracks, and you had to make your bed every morning, and you better be able to flip a coin off the bed. That means they had to be taught. If it wasn't, the DI would tear off the bedding and make you do it over again. And if it happened again, then he punished everybody in the barracks with extra KP duty. So if somebody did that more than once, they got a blanket party. In other words, they threw a blanket over your head and beat the crap out of you, and next time your bed was made tight. Anyway, we were down there, and when they told me, when I enlisted, I wanted to be an air policeman. And when it came time to be telling you where you're going to be or what you're going to be doing, they said, no, you're not. The needs of the Air Force come first. You're going to be an air traffic refueler. And I said, but that's not what I signed up for. And they said, oh, well, the needs of the Air Force come first. When you're in there, the government owns you, okay? And you'll go wherever they tell you that you're going to go. So anyway, they put me in for training for that. And my first duty station was Scott Air Force Base in Belleville, Illinois. And it was a MAC airstrip there, which Military Airlift Command. So we serviced mainly the big C-130s and stuff that we load up with gear to send over to the different areas. And I was there with some guys from Texas, and some from New York, and some from other places in the United States. And so we worked together there, and myself and two of my friends from Texas were promoted to, at that time, called Airman First Class. Later that was changed during the Vietnam War to sergeant, rank of sergeant. And did that so that we could go to the NCO clubs. There was 3 stripes on your sleeve. So anyway, after we were down there for most of that year in 65, and to about 66, and then they sent us over to Taiwan. Taiwan is Formosa, and its national is China. So myself and the guys from Texas, they still kept us together, and a couple guys from out east, and they sent us over there. And the air base over there was Kun Quan Air Base. It was right on the China Straits. We were looking at Red China every morning and every night. And it was also the CIA was working out of there a little bit. And so we had to help them do with what they had to do with their planes. And so anyway, while I was there, I had some airmen underneath me, and we would refuel these fighter planes and these transport planes and stuff. We were in direct support of Vietnam. And from there, they sent us to a couple other schools over there, Guam, Okinawa, Thailand, and the school in Bangkok, Thailand was a secret school. So myself and a guy from Georgia, his name was, trying to think of his name, George. They sent me and him over to Vietnam. And what happened was I had come back from the school to Kun Quan, and the sergeant over me called me back at the hooch. That's what we were in, a portable hooch. And he says, "You see that C-130 on the deck out there, camouflage?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "You got 1 hour. Remember that school you went to?" I go, "Yes, sir." He says, "You're going to be sent to Vietnam, and you're going to be sent there on temporary duty, and you're going to be sent there to join I Corps, Marine Special Ops." I go, "Ooh." So he said, "Well, can I write home? Or can I call home?" It was more like it. "You haven't got time." He said, "Pack your bag, you're going." And so I went over there, and I flew into Da Nang in a C-130, and they were shooting at us as we were coming in at night. So that plane's a big plane, but them pilots put that plane right down on the deck quick. And all I can remember was they put us in the barracks that first night, and then they filled us in what we were going to do. And I told the senior sergeant over me, I says, "You remember the Sullivan brothers?" And he goes, "Yeah, why?" I said, "I'm the last male in my family, carrying the family name. I'm not supposed to be in a combat zone." And he said, "Well, temporary duty, full duty, we can't put you here. But temporary duty, we can put you here. We own you, boy." He says, "That check you get says U.S. government. Doesn't say U.S. Air Force, doesn't say U.S. Marines, any of that stuff." So I was detached from the Air Force, assigned to Marines. And then he sent me down in the Trang for a while, where Puff the Magic Dragon was. And that's one of the oldest planes that's still in existence. I still believe they're still using them today, and they were used in World War II. They were called air trans in World War II. And they were the ones that had the mini Gatling guns on them. So when those planes came over a base that was getting overrun, and that plane banked, everybody better be as deep in the ground as you can possibly get, because it's going to rain bullets. Anyway, I was there for a little while, and then I went back to Da Nang. And I was working with the Marines and the Navy over there inside the wire. Now, what do I mean by inside the wire? Inside the wire means you're working on the base on the friendly side. Outside of the wire means you're out in the bush. You're out there in no man's land. And they send you there for a reason. And some of those reasons I can't really tell you about. But anyway, we were working inside the wire, and we got mortar attacked. And the BC that was using the mortars, he couldn't set the charges right. So if you guys ever went to the baseball game here, the Cougars or one of them games, and they have the aerial display of fireworks, the first thing they send up is an aerial bomb. It goes up and makes a big boom. That's what a mortar round sounds like when it's going off. And so me and this Navy guy, we said we better get the hell out of here. So they set it and it went off high in the air. But so by the time we had enough time to get out of the way, so any of the metal coming down from that round would just kind of like filter down and hit the ground, wouldn't get us. So we're running through this barracks that the Marines had, going to the bunker. And this was the first time I'd ever been under hostile fire. And so we're running through the barracks, and these 5 or 6, we call them gyrenes, Marines were over in a corner. Now this is in Vietnam, in their barracks there. In Vietnam, it gets hot starting at 4 o'clock in the morning. Heat waves are coming off the jungle floor. Baby power is your best friend. Every time you send home for something, you ask for baby power because you got to stay dry. And in the monsoon season, there's a reason I'm giving you a background there. In the monsoon season, it rains so hard, you can't see 2 feet in front of you. That's the way it was over there. And anyway, I'll tell you some more about that in a minute. So we're running through these barracks, and these Marines say, Air Force, where are you going? I said, I'm going to the bunker. They're shooting at us. So you're going to die anyway, come on over here. About the 4th or 5th shot of Jack Daniels, I didn't give a shit no more. And we bonded right then and there. From that day forward, they watched my 6, which is my butt, and I watched theirs. And we made it through there. And we didn't care if your skin color was black, white, pink, or purple, or your eyes were slanted around. We were a team. And if we didn't work together, some of us weren't going to be coming back. So we did our jobs, and we backed each other up. And my MOS, which means what was I trained for, was forward fire bases. So I was up around Khe Sanh. And I serviced all different kinds of aircraft up there. And what I did was I set up a fueling system up there. That's what that school was about. I don't know if you guys remember, or your grandparents ever showed you a hot water bottle. It's made of rubber, and you put the water in there, and either cold or hot to put on your skin to help calm it down. These things were huge rubber bladders that we filled with different gas. You had 2 kinds of gas. You had jet fuel and you had avgas. Avgas was for propeller-operated planes. The other was for fighter planes. So we went up there and worked up in there. So I did what I did, and then they would send me back to Khun Quan. And then I did what I had to do there, and then he sent me back over to Vietnam. So it was back and forth. So I got shot at a couple of different times. And outside the base there at Da Nang, there was a mountain they call it Monkey Mountain, huge mountain. And the base commander of the base got tired of what happens was every other day or every other week or so, the enemy would have it and we'd have to go out and take it back from the enemy and vice versa. So he hired these mercenaries from Australia, and there was about 5 or 6 of them. Those guys came in there, they put on the black pajamas, they went up there one night, they came back the next night, no more BC. Those guys we thought we were tough. These people were really tough. And then for when we weren't on duty, they had the NCO club, and they would have movies, and you could go there and you could drink alcohol and stuff like that, whatever. And we ate on base. I speak a little Vietnamese, I speak a little Mandarin Chinese, and a little bit of French, but that's it. I only regret I didn't go on in Formosa. I didn't go to the Boston College had a course over there to speak Mandarin Chinese fluently. I'm just sorry I didn't do that. So anyway, I worked with them there, and there's some stuff that happened there that involved Red China that I can't tell you about. But the nationalist Chinese wanted to go back over and take back Red China. Every day they were talking about it. And I was just praying that I'd be back home before they decided to do that. But anyway, I still have to this day a buddy of mine that was with me over there. He was a sergeant too. He lives in San Antonio. The other ones, I don't know where they went. But I put in for Holloman Air Force Base, White Sands Missile Range, New Mexico. And before I left there, I got an offer from the CIA. They wanted me to work either for Air America or Tiger Airlines. That's the CIA operations over there. It's the goal. It's the Iron Triangle. And I says no. So anyway, I came back, and then I went back home on leave. And then after my leave, I went down to White Sands Missile Range and Holloman Air Force Base, Alamogordo, New Mexico. And I served down there for 9 months and 9 days. And then it came up for me either re-upping or coming back. Now what we did down there is there was a flight of F-4s that came out of Germany down there. That's one of the reasons they sent me down there, is I was familiar with the aircraft and the refueling and everything with it. And I mingled with some of the guys that worked on the Air Force down there. When they got out, they stayed there. And they had homes and stuff like in Tularosa and Alamogordo. And so I hung out with them, and on my spare time, I bought a horse, and I went out there, and I actually cowboyed with them when I wasn't working. But then I go back to the base and do my regular job. So it come time for me to get out, and at that time, there was a shortage of police officers in the whole United States. And LA was wanting us right out of the military because we were already trained, and they just had to do some police training with us. But as far as combat training and stuff, we were already trained. I thought about it, but I really didn't like the idea of going there. So I was going to stay in New Mexico. I got a job offer with an Alamogordo at $450 a month. And I didn't think that was a lot of money. Back then it might have been, but my parents were the same age that I am now. I'm 78 this next Friday. And I'm the only child, so I decided to sell the horse and stuff like that, and to come back to Aurora, where they were living. The Lincoln National Park was right outside of Alamogordo, and I really liked it up there, but I had an obligation because there's nobody else. So I came back, and then I tried out for a little bit for pro football up there in Green Bay. I was in their camps for a little while, and then that didn't work out, so I became a policeman in Batavia. And I joined the police department here in August of 1969, along with my cousin Denny Anderson, who ended up being a chief down the road. And there was 13 of us here then. And we wore trooper-style hats, light tan shirts, and brown pants with a darker brown stripe on them. And we were dispatched out of the old building on Water Street there, the north side of it, where there's now, I think there's still some city offices, but it was the plant that for the city at that time. They had offices there for the police and then he had the plant that was attached to it where the dispatcher worked out of. And there was 13 of us back then. So I worked there for about a year, and I took the test for Aurora and passed them, so I went there for, I was getting $650 a month here in Batavia. I went to Aurora for $650 a month. Now, in Batavia, I'm the oldest member of this post. I joined this post in 1969. And at that time, they had the World War II guys and the Korean War veterans. And they told me they were reluctant to let me join because my war was a policing action. Now let me explain that to you folks. When Korea first started, it was a policing action. Then they sent in our troops to train the troops for that area to defend themselves. And then when Vietnam started, they moved those trainees over to Vietnam. They weren't supposed to get into combat. They were just supposed to train the South Vietnamese and the South Koreans on how to fight. But things escalated, and we ended up sending more people, and so pretty soon we were at boots on the ground over in Vietnam. And so anyway, I said, well, I don't know what you call it, but I was getting shot at. And they said still wasn't a war. At that time, and like I said, the year was 1969, a lot of guys coming back from Vietnam were persecuted because they at that time, the people in the flower power people thought we were brutal and cruel and stuff like that. But, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to go into the gore part, but when you're over there and you're faced, whether it's in the military or police work, with somebody that's armed that's going to kill you, you got a family. And he no longer becomes, or they, or it's man or woman, I don't care who it is, they no longer are a human person. It's called displacing. And so what I would do is, they were just an object anymore. They weren't a human being. And I would terminate because I wanted to stick around. And that came true in my years in Aurora. I did 30 years in the city of Aurora in some of the roughest parts of town there. And I did that for 30 years. I worked in investigations, I worked on the streets, I walked the beat, I was good at catching armed robbers and burglars in the act armed. And the word had gotten on the street that I would terminate them. Disconnect is the word. I would disconnect and I would terminate them if they tried to hurt me with a firearm or a knife or whatever, and I had plenty of them pull them on me. But they knew I would do it, and so they dropped their weapon, which would save their life. And so anyway, I retired out of Aurora there in 2021 there. And then I went up to Kane County, work for as bailiff for 19 years, 9 months. Now I'm fully retired and I'm on partial disability from the 80% disability from the Agent Orange, PTSD, and hypertension from the military. And I joined this, like I said, I joined this post in '69. So I'm the 10-year member of this post with 56 years. You look over there on the wall, those are all commanders. You go back to 1969, run your finger through them all the way through to the current. That's how many commanders I serve. I'm a judge advocate, which means that I am the law of the post, and my job is to watch the commanders 6. So I have the national rule book. If he has a quandary or a question about a subject that needs to be addressed that he doesn't know, he'll ask me to look it up and give him my interpretation of it, and he will either override me or agree with me. Now, you ask me why I joined. Besides beating the draft, I did it for God, duty, and country. And if I was physically able to do it again, I would be right back there doing it again. Ladies and gentlemen, there is no country, none in the world, That's like the United States. When I got back here, first thing I did is kneel on the ground, kiss the ground I walked on. Because I lived in third world countries, people, and you really don't want to do that. And you really don't want to live in a banana republic because it's not good for you. Anyway, you got your freedom to do what you want to do here now. And before all that, I was, like I said to you guys, I was a Boy Scouts and I was a Life Scout and I was Order of the Arrow. And I did all that, and a lot of us that were doing that ended up in the military and went up the ranks. And because we were already partially trained with skills like you guys are being trained in and outdoors wise, not combat wise, outdoor wise, and how to survive in the outside. I did it for God, duty, and country, and that's what I still believe today. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, I am Judge Advocate of the 19th District, which is also DeKalb, Kane, DuPage, and part of Cook, and all the posts in those districts. I'm one of their officers. They got a commander and senior vice and junior vice and quartermaster and stuff like that, and I'm one of the higher ones. So that's what I do, and that's what I'll do till the day I die, unless they don't want to put me in their position anymore.
What skills or lessons did you learn from your years in service?
Oh, well, I learned how to survive, again, outside of the Boy Scouts. I learned how to survive out there in the jungle. I learned how to, I thought I was the toughest thing since that I could remember, but because I played football and I wrestled. And at the time I went in, I weighed about close to 200 pounds, but by the time they worked my little butt off, I dropped down to about 180. Then as I served over there, I gained back my weight. And when I got out, I was 245 pounds. I was buffed. Played football overseas too when we weren't in combat. And I learned to work with others from all over the country. We may think we're the toughest things here in Illinois, but there's people out there that are tougher than we are. So you better learn to get along. And you better learn to watch each other's six. But again, the thing I can impress on people the most is we did not care what color your skin was, what religion you were, any of that. You see these football teams and stuff, they all got teams together to stick together and stuff like that. Well, we had the same thing, only if one of us screws up, we die. We don't come back. I got a lot of friends that are up there on the wall. It could have been me. I was just lucky that the ones who were shooting at me couldn't hit a bull in the back at 50 yards. But some of my other buddies were not so good. And one other thing about when you're in the jungle, you'll see out here in these posters, a bunch of our pictures are up there on the wall on the other side, on that side of the bar up on the wall. You'll see one with a tiger. He transferred to a different post now. But what happens there? Now you're in a jungle, and when you have a fight, when you're in a big fight, the only thing I'll tell you is we take everybody off the battlefield dead or alive. The VC did not do that. We had to pile up their bodies, and so what the tigers would come there, and it was natural eating for them. So they got used to eating human beings. So you may be on a patrol with your M16 and going through the jungle, and a tiger could pounce out on you. In this case, a guy out there, our guy out there that was in the Army, he loaded that tiger up with a bunch of M16 rounds. But so I mean, you're never hardly dry there. Got rice paddies, and those people were living in, some of them were living in the dark ages yet over there in some of those countries. Now it's probably changed, but back then, 69, it wasn't 67. It was June of 67 I went into Vietnam.
What did you learn about yourself?
I learned how to survive and be tough and to be self-sufficient.
What was the best and worst part of your service?
Well, the time I spent in that school in Bangkok, that and down there in Holloman was good there because I liked the West. I'm a big Western fan, so I liked the West. But again, I had to come back because of my family. But all I can tell you is, if nobody goes in to serve, this country's going to be overrun. And right now, there's not a lot of guys and girls wanting to go into the military unless you're in a military school, like the Army one and the Navy one. Because if you don't have anybody protecting you, how are you going to protect yourself? So, common sense, people.
How did you stay in touch with your family and friends while overseas?
By letter. By letter. It costs a fortune to call on the phone. So communication was by letter.
Did you meet any lifelong friends while serving?
Yeah, I do. The guy's name's Frank Plochek. He's the one lives down around. He lives in Cotulla, Texas, which is south of San Antonio. We still communicate with each other. He had a small ranch down there, and he got lucky. He got an oil well on it. But he and I, we still keep in touch. The rest of them, no. We did for a while, but they kind of dropped off. Frank's about 3 years older than I am. He didn't serve with me when I got back to the States. He went, I think, to Florida, to a base down there. But he keeps in touch with me. Now, I come from a long line of military people. My uncles were in the Army, in the Navy. Most of them were in the Army and the Navy. I got a good friend that lives in Aurora. He's a full bird colonel from the National Guard, but he was he was a Marine over there in Vietnam. And I still keep, that's the other guy I keep track with. I have breakfast with him every once in a while. His name's Rick Totis. He's a member of this post. And then I've just brought in another one, Dan Peterson. Dan Peterson, he would go down in the tunnels in Vietnam with a flashlight, a breathing mask, and a .38 revolver, Smith & Wesson revolver. And I would not go, I was too big, I couldn't go in there, and thank you, Jesus. But he was the right size. He still got metal coming out of him from frags. But I would do it again. I just told you, I would do it again. I'd live and die for that flag.
Was there anything you took for granted about civilian life?
No, back then it was different times. You remember I said what year I was born. Back then, schools were more stricter, parents were more stricter, and you told the mark, otherwise, like I said, in basic, or in any military base, you either told the mark or you got consequences. And if you do something really stupid, they put you in a brig, which I never had to me. And if they do that, when you get out, you got bad time, you got to serve more time, and then they'll discharge you, dishonorable discharge, which you don't want. You don't ever want that, because that's a big black mark on you. I never had that.
Is there anything you wish civilians understood about the military?
Well, again, if it wasn't for the military and the people in it, the common person here wouldn't have the right to speak and say what they wanted to say, wouldn't have the right to demonstrate, wouldn't have the right to go and come as they please, wouldn't have a lot of the rights that we gave them. As I said, the men and women on that wall, you got to realize that a lot of those people were 19 and 20 years old. They gave their whole life up for people like us, or, well, I was one of them, but I didn't get shot. But for people like you guys and these people walk the streets today. So you go to these national cemeteries. I've been to Arlington twice. I've been to the Punch Bowl once out in Hawaii when I was out that way, and I was over in Normandy. And when you're in one of these cemeteries, you whisper. You do not raise your voice, otherwise you're chastised right now. Somebody's there going to jump all over you like white on rice. That's holy ground. And those guys, they gave everything. They gave the last full measure of their lives so that we today could live, be beyond that. But if it wasn't for the men and women that did that, and there's several deals, I can show you some of them on my phone, that people have thanked us for what we did. And they did that on that honor flight. You're treated like royalty out there when you go on honor flight. They stop, the police, motorcycle people, stop the traffic on the expressway so you can go from the waiting pool area where the World War II and Vietnam and all those are, to the aerospace deal where the Enola Gay is. That's the one that dropped the atomic bomb. And to do that, you had to go on the expressway. They stopped all the traffic there for 4 buses. We were on one of the buses, so we could go up there. And you don't get that. Only dignitaries get that kind of stuff. But they did it for us. Took our picture there and give us accolades left and right. And then I had a couple of reporters ask me, thank me for my service. I looked them in the eyes and said, for people like you, it's worth it. And I'm looking at you in the eyes and I said, for people like you, it was worth it. For people that weren't like you and that I had to deal with, like when I did deal over there and in police work, it wasn't worth it. But for people like you, it's worth it. Risking my neck.
How was it transitioning back to civilian life?
Slow but sure. I stayed with my parents for a while. And then I went out and, like I said, went out and tried out for different things until I got my job here in Batavia. Then I got an apartment at Lincoln Courts. And so I was living up here and stayed up in this area mainly. And then when I went down to Aurora, I still was living up here. And in then days, you could live in a 4-county area and work in Aurora, and I stayed up here. And I'm still here today. I live in Geneva, but most of the stuff I do here is in Batavia. And I was honor guard captain of the parades, Memorial Day parades from the beginning all the way up to the end. And the last one, I was the marshal, grand marshal. And that lasted for several years. I think the last one was 2014.